Hello everybody, welcome to JT's Customs again. I have now purchased this 110 Honda. It's a 1983. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a restoration, but this is not going to be one of my typical restorations. It's not going to be so detailed and deep, you might say. I'm not going to paint the frame. And I'll tell you why, because as you're looking at this, I don't know if you're seeing what I'm seeing. If you're an aficionado of three-wheelers, then you probably understand what's going on here. This is an original 110 that's been sitting in a garage for over 30 years. They wrote it sparingly, and I say sparingly because this is the... Can you see the OSHA or I call it OSHA. Atoso. Anyway, these are the original tires. And they've still got this sort of tread left on them. This thing has got probably 50 hours. Maybe. I don't even think 50. To get to this wear on original tires, and let me show you. I'm going to show you the back tires also. You can see, I mean, it hasn't even worn off these. But you can see that they're cracked from age. So I'm going to go a couple of ways. I'm going to see what I can do. I might tube these just because, I mean, why would you get rid of the original tires? This isn't going to be something you're going to take out in the farm and beat up. You know, this is, there's that OSHA. Let's just call them OSHA tires. So the OSHA tires. But the silver, you know, all of the hubs, everything on this is in such good condition. The plastic, I mean, these little scuffs are nothing. They put a funky sticker. I'm going to work on that. We've got a California off-road sticker. June of '89. Probably the last day this was out. The seat does not have a tear in it. Not a single tear. I'm going to work on this gas cap, and I'm probably going to send out in chrome a few of these pieces. Probably this bottom piece, maybe, but maybe not. Probably I might just get this and the rear grab rail, and I'll show you why. I have this beautiful, just lovely 70 that I have videos on. You can look in my channel, and you can see this complete restoration. I think it's about a 4-part video, but look how nice that looks after it's been chromed. Now, I had 3 pieces chromed, okay, just to give you an idea. This piece, the shift lever, and this rear grab bar, $250 just for those 3 items. So you have to be sparing on what you're going to chrome, but it has to come out nice. So with that in mind, let's get it on the rack and take a closer look. Now we can get a little bit closer view of it, a little bit better view. And let's just look for little things, you know. Factory bolts are there. There's one missing there. And there's one back there I can see. Doesn't look like these have ever been bent back to expose or to move the wiring. And the frame has got some water spotting on it, but that's not going to matter. Brake levers are not bent. I've got some flaking, a lot of flaking of black paint here, but that's no big deal. I say no big deal, but these are all things we have to address. And down here, we've got rust that's sitting on the on the arm. But here's another tell about how many hours or how much use the bike's had. You can see that these rubber grooves here, they're not even worn. I mean, this thing has never been run. I mean, literally, you can see the nubs still on the knobbies in the rear. So it's exciting because you don't find them this way too often. And what I want to do is I want to explain that I got this from a really, really nice couple here in the Reno Tahoe area. They were getting rid of the bike and it doesn't run. So, you know, the value tends to go down. When you can't hear it run, 90% of the people would be concerned. And oh my, well, I don't know. I'm going to have to figure a whole new motor. I can tell you right now, there's no expense rebuilding the motor. It's going to be probably the stator, or it's going to be the coil, which you can see back there. See the coil there? That's one of the first things we're going to check. But to try and find this original plastic and all of these nuts and bolts that hold the rear mud flaps on, never been off. Never been off. I doubt if that air cleaner's ever been cleaned, quite honestly. And it even has, in the back here, the owner's manual. But the people were so gracious to let me take this off their hands, and I told them to watch the video. They can watch their own, you know, their old vehicle get, you know, restored. And this is going to be a fairly in-depth restoration, but it's not going to be as deep as I ever had to go, because there's just nothing that needs to be done other than get it running. I'm going to have to try to address the color of these cases, and I may even decide to pull the head, but then again, I don't know, because I could tape off the cylinder here, could tape it off and paint it, depending on how clean and how shiny I can get the head. And there it is, 1983 Honda ATC110. So the first things first is we've got to get it running. And in order to do that, we've got to get some sparks. So I'm going to pull the seat and a few other things, and we're going to get right down to the electronics. And I pulled the coil off, and I'm not getting really good readings. I kind of am, and I'm kind of not. So I'm not sure if this is bad. I'm going to look into it a little deeper. But what I'm going to do is what I kind of always have done. And I go ahead and put a socket on there, and then I'm going to get my drill to spin this over. I'm going to pull the spark plug out so that it spins easy. And then I've got my two hot leads coming out of my my generator here, okay? And so I'm going to spin it over using a test light. I'm going to see if I'm getting juice out of the rectifier. I trace the wires from, it's either the stator or the rectifier. I trace the wires over here. I'm going to pull this, and we're going to unplug them. And here they are going into the wiring harness. Actually, no, I've got to pull this plug here. This is the one. All right, so I put a little prong on here, so I'm only going to hit one of these poles at a time. I don't want to maybe short something out. And let's see. Doesn't look like it's getting any juice. Nope. on that prong. Let's try this one. And I would assume I need it on both. I think they're both hot, but we'll see. Nope, no juice out of the stator or rectifier. I think it's stator. So I would assume that that coil is good. And so now I'm going to need to dive into this. So I'm testing the wrong wire. I'm testing this wire. It's coming out of the CDI unit. So I've got to test this wire, and I'll pull this around and we'll get her tested. All right, so I've got the right wires now. There you go. Power there. And this one doesn't want to power, doesn't want to put out juice as readily. Got to spin it up a little. So I don't know, that might still be a problem. So we're going to do the ohm. All right, so what I've come up with is when I test the stator, and I'm going to see if I can put this in a spot where you can see it. I think you can see that fairly good there. So crossing these two wires over is 210 ohms. Okay, so there's a lot of resistance. That's not good. Okay, and then put the black to the ground, test each one of these. We got 208 ohms, right? And we got less than an ohm, but any reading at all means that it's bad. So that stator is suspect, and I mean, from everything I'm reading, it's bad, so I'm going to replace it. The other test that I see is that you start the engine, and then you take an AC reading out of each one, and the AC reading out of each one should be identical. The problem with this is one of these was much brighter than the other. In fact, one of them wouldn't even light up till I had the thing at maybe 1,000 or 1,500 RPM. So they should be identical. If they're not, stator. If you're showing any ohms at all to a ground on either wire, the stator. And then the last one is wire to wire, getting 200 ohms. I don't know what the spec is on this machine because I'm having a hard time finding a manual, but I would assume it's not 200 ohms. More like, I don't know, maybe, who knows, maybe 10 or 5 or whatever. So it is worth my time to just go ahead and order a stator, put it in, and go. Well, I'm learning a lot more. I think the stator's good. Look how nice and clean. Look at that. It's so fun to work on virgin equipment. That's like brand new. And look inside the CDI unit. I mean, that thing looks brand new. So what I'm learning is, I was saying before that the two wires coming out of here both have to have the same voltage. That's wrong. Okay, what I did was I checked to make sure that there was juice coming out of both, and what I found was there's quite a bit of AC coming out of the black wire, and that wire is what feeds the ignition system, and then the yellow wire feeds the lights. So there's a lighting coil in there. There's something in here, a lighting coil, and then there's the ignition coil. So each of them produce juice, but you can see, even though that the wire that goes to the lights only put out, you had to really spin it to get it to produce any energy, where the other one just, lit up my test light the minute I started spinning the motor. But that's because the lights, if you ever notice the light kind of like dimming on these bikes when it's at a really low idle, that's because that's the circuit that right now is putting out way less to the wiring harness, but watch the headlight when I spin this over. So I'm going to spin it at a slow RPM, very slow, right? See the light? Now when I speed it up, so when the engine's running, it's got plenty of juice, but the other coil puts out a lot of juice with just a little bit of movement because you're going to just be using the pull starter. So that's what I kind of came to. I don't know if that's perfect or not. We're just playing around here, but the answer is I pulled this cover and I looked at the gap, and the gap's fine. This all looks so brand new that I just, don't believe there's anything at issue here. And then you do an ohm test on this particular piece here. This is a pickup, or whatever you'd want to call it, CDI. Actually, it's not the CDI. I thought the CDI was in here, but all this is it's a trigger. It's basically a crank trigger, or it tells the CDI unit when to spark. So this reads 90 ohms, which is exactly what it should read. So then the other question was, is the on and off switch shorting out and telling the motor to stop running and basically killing the spark? And that is not. I checked the continuity on it. Again, this and this wiring harness has never been apart. I'm the first one in there. And so what I've come down to, I tested the coil, and I believe that the spec is good. It's kind of tricky, but anyhow, you check the high tension lead here, you check it with an ohm meter, and then you check the power coming in and ground to the ohm meter. And I'm getting a reading that's close enough to spec that I don't think it's the coil. It's this little CDI box. So I ordered it, and I looked at the wiring harness, and you've got the black wire that's coming from the coil over there, the stator. It comes in here. The on-off switch comes in here, and the trigger that I showed you over there comes in here. And then this is computerized. It's like points or condenser, and it's telling the coil at the proper time when to spark. And we're just not getting any spark. We're not getting any juice to the wire. So if you're not getting any juice to the wire, good or bad, with the coil, you're not getting any juice to the coil. So we ordered this. It's coming. So the next step for this bike is to work on preserving these original wheels and our original tires. So what we're going to do is pull these right now, and we're going to take them down to the motorcycle shop that I use, and hopefully they're going to be able to break these beads. But it's tough. These beads can be just welded on there with rust. You don't see it, but it can be that way. But I am thinking I'm going to get lucky, because this thing has been sitting inside for so long and has really no use. So hopefully these beads will just break, and I'll be able to dismount the tires, and I'm going to put tubes inside. I'm going to paint the rims and then reassemble the whole thing. So that's the step that we're going to do right now. And there it is. All the tires are off. So here we are at Reno Motorsports. They broke the beads on that machine. And I've always had great luck here at Reno Motorsports with all my tires. Dennis is a great guy, and they just get me in and out. So if you need a place to get your tires mounted or buy tires, they're pretty good. And here are the rims split, and that's the, they're not in bad shape at all. I mean, they're in as good a shape as you can imagine for its age. But after a little bit of bead blasting, these are going to paint up really nice. All right, it's off the rack, and I used my motorcycle tie downs as supports and hung it by that and slid my little cart underneath it. So now I've got it blocked up, and now I can start doing the cleaning, and I'll probably even pull a few things off of here prior to cleaning, like this arm and this piece here. And I'm going to restore this, paint this. I'm going to paint this, but that'll come off after the cleaning once I'm back on the bench. And then I'm going to renew this. I'm going to paint this. And everything else, this is most likely going to get painted. And it might get painted on, but I'm not sure. It's not much to actually pull it. I just pull this axle nut and this backing plate comes off. But just the exhaust is the only culprit that's really, really bad. The rest of it, I did a little bit of an inspection right there. See how nice that frame's going to look when I'm done cleaning it? Now there is going to be some rust on the backbone, but I think it's more important to leave this in its original condition than it is to take it as far as I normally do. I don't even want to break the seal from this chain cover. It's just, you know, how often do you get an ATC that still has the, you know, a little bit of the tits left on the tires? And so, and to give you an idea of that, you see that? These are the tits, okay? Now, these don't necessarily get rubbed off with a lot of miles, but see the wear on these knobs? They're minimal, and this thing's never been in sand, because if it was in sand, these little pieces of rubber here would just be taken off. So let's start cleaning. I am going to continue to clean, but I wanted to show you the rims. I'm going to probably paint the front rims here and just do one rim and tire. See how it comes out. I'm sure it's going to come out beautifully. I always hit the bare metal if I can with just a really, really light coat of this stuff here. It's a self-etching primer, and it is really, really good stuff. It dries in 10-15 minutes, so it's just one step that kind of helps. You can see it's kind of covered, and over here it hasn't quite covered, but it's only so that it gives the paint something to adhere to. And what I'm going to do right now is go over it with the Honda Cloud Silver, which is OEM color. Cloud Silver. So let's get that sprayed on. And there's one coat, very light coats. Just put on very light coats. And then I'm going to put a little thicker one on. I call it a berry coat. Berries it. So I'll do about 3 coats. This is the first coat. And there it is after 3 coats. Real nice. Get those tires on there. Takes about a half a can to do one wheel. There they are. Let them dry. And here's the after. And I'm going to leave this. And when I put some go-go juice on it, it's really not going to be that much of an issue. And the reason I'm not going to try to touch any of this up is that these are age cracks in here. Just, you know, simple age cracks. And a little bit of surface rust. And I mean, for a bike of this age, you know, everything else is just really, really nice. Now I'm going to pull the skid plate. Probably going to pull this. And I'm going to paint the skid plate, the brake hub cover, and this engine side cover. I'm going to remove and paint this and the exhaust. But as you can see, you know, down in there, it's nice and clean, and you know, the shine is kind of back, and then a little go-go juice, and it's just going to be like brilliant. So this is going to need to be repainted, and I'm not sure how I'm going to do that either. It's easy enough to take it off, which I'm going to do, but I can get these stickers, but I really don't want to take anything original off of this if I can. And I should be able to sand a little bit, tape off, and definitely get that acceptable. And then I'm going to paint the cylinder, and that's about it. So there it is. So in order to get the exhaust off, I believe I've got to pull this cover. So that means I can super detail it. And I pulled the air box, and I wanted to show you what the inside looks like on the air box. I don't know if you can see it. Look at that. God, that thing's got, I think this has 10 miles on it. It's exciting when you get something like this. So I've got to pull these hubs on both sides and pull this cover, and hopefully I have access to the mounting bolts for the. And if you ever wondered how the cotter pins are done from the factory, that's how they're done. This has never seen a wrench, a socket, anything. Nothing. It's totally virgin. Look at how much brake play there is. Come on, focus. That's it. That's all the brake play. They probably don't even have the edges worn down. And here's the other cotter pin. So that just leads me to believe that is the original way the factory did cotter pins, which I kind of always wondered about that, whether you snip off this little side here, but that's how they do it. That is what an ATC looks like with maybe 5 or 10 hours on it. I mean, there's hardly any chain lube, that original chain lube. You can see the little cracks of the lube. I mean, this is awesome. But what I did find is that in their 10-hour ride, they must have hit something and bent the bottom of this cover. So I'm going to straighten that out. But just wanted you to see, you know, look at that sprocket. It doesn't have any wear. I bet most of the movement is just from pushing this around the shop or the garage or whenever they move. So I was pulling out one of these bolts, and I happened to start on this one, and lo and behold, that's the bolt that holds the exhaust in. So let's just see if we'll go ahead and take the cover off, but that's hilarious. I got that first time. And after looking at this, I determined this has less than 10 hours. More like 5, more like 3. Like go around the circle twice and put it in the garage. So I pulled this, that's the rear brake hub cover. And I pulled the footrest, and it's straight as an arrow, and I'm just gonna touch that up. And the exhaust is a bear. I had to literally hang this from its tail, but it just came right out through the bottom. And that's the only way it's coming out, because you can't break this down. So it's a one piece. So just so you know, if you're going to try and get the exhaust out, be prepared to hang it from its tail or sit it on its back, which is what a lot of times you got the grab rail and then you got the tires. You can just, have it like popping a huge wheelie, just sitting on its butt, staring straight up in the air. Then it would probably come out very easily. Again, I just can't get over what these things look like when you pull the covers off. It's never been used. I wanted to show you something I've never seen. The top of the skid plate is in worse condition than the bottom. That's just something I've never. Now these are all sandblasted, ready for paint. You can see came out nice. The exhaust is going to look great. Got special paint for all that. So Chico, the parts manager, and he's trying to take up painting, right, Chico? Yeah, he thinks he can paint now. He painted these pretty nice, I gotta say. Chico's getting it down, right, buddy? Yeah. Oh, geez. Yeah, he's a happy boy. So you also, what was that, Chico? Oh, yeah, the chrome platers. They talk to you on the phone, right? Yeah, there we go. Yeah, okay. So what Chico told me was that they said that they're going to try and get the chrome out in like 2 weeks, and that's unbelievable. I've shopped everywhere. The chrome is just an issue. So it's expensive, and it takes 6 to 8 weeks. And so they just said it's a small enough order. And, and they kind of like looked at Chico and they said 2 weeks. So Chico decided he wanted to have me paint this first. So what we're going to do is we're going to go a little bit backwards. We're going to start doing everything we can in here while everything's off. Just makes sense, right? So let's get this painted. All right, I'm all ready to paint. And this is what I'm going to use. 500 degree satin black. And I believe that's going to be a pretty close match. Kind of want more of a shiny, but I just don't have it. It's not that important. I think the satin actually is probably more close to what it should be. Could be a gloss black, but it's going to look great. Well, it's early morning, so I can't talk very loud. We got the side cover off. That came off fairly easy. And you can see the cylinder came out really, really nice. While I have the carburetor off, I figured I'd open it up. It's only been 30 years. But this is what a 30-year-old carburetor that's never been used looks like. The initial grunge, I guess, or the original fuel that I'd say probably 4 float bowls full, sat, and evaporated, and shows a little bit of brownish color to it. The brass looks beautiful, and the orifice is open, but this pilot jet was plugged. It's totally plugged, so it wouldn't have idled. And I just happen to have a Honda 38 right here, and that's the float bowl. As you can see, there's just a tiny bit of cleaning to do, and that's my jet selection. I was lucky to have the jet. And this is a collection of, this is Mikuni, this is Kian. This is all polishing wheels, and these are nuts, bolts, screws, all sorts of stuff that come in really handy. I'm going to take this outside. I'm going to just run some brake cleaner through all the little orifices and squirt it out and just do a thorough cleaning. And then we'll clean this up and then we'll put it back together and put it back on. And there are the pieces painted. And if you notice, that satin kind of ends right here, and then you've got a flat, and that's because that's the high temperature stuff. That's more like the Honda color there. That's what I found to be the best Honda color. And as you can see, I've got CT70 pegs up here, and those are on another project. You can look at that on my channel and you can see the CT70 that I'm in the middle of building also. So here is the skid plate, more exhaust stuff, and the foot pegs. All this stuff is gonna go on today. Now it's off to the bead blast to get all this paint off and decide what I'm gonna do about that, and take the hardware off and run it through the cleaning parts washer first, get all the oils and stuff off, and then we'll assess what we got to do. There's more to this one than meets the eye, I can tell. All right, so the bead blasting really did it was the ticket. That got all the corrosion off. Now, you know, I could take some, I don't know, 1,000 grit, start with like 400 grit, even 220, and grind down a little further. But you know, it's not that important on this. We're just doing a detail, a JT detail. And so on a restoration, I probably would have blasted all the paint off, but instead I just took some sandpaper and feathered it in, and it should be fine. So let's get these painted and then we can start putting this thing back together. And there's the pull starter. We'll get that tape off of there, and there's the pull starter. Honda. A light coat of primer, just in case. First coat, very light. Some areas it's just a mist. And the second coat, and it's completely covered, and I may not put a third coat on. I'm kind of liking this. Sometimes if you do a third coat, it almost makes it orange peel a little more. And it gets thick anyway. And there's nothing you can do about when you tighten the bolts, you know, the paint's going to crack. It's just the way it is. I'm sure if you cured it longer off the bike, it would probably not chip as readily, but we can deal with this. I think this is plenty, unless I see a spot that is a little light, but I don't. So this is good. And that's the black I'm using for the gloss. Rust-Oleum on automotive enamel gloss. Get the exhaust back on. I had to attach the rear axle fairly snug to the table so it wouldn't move. And then strap the front forks. And so now I'm letting the table down, and when I do, the forks start coming up, and this thing needs to be damn near straight up and down to get that exhaust in. So let's see how far we can. I hate to do this on video because these are the things you cut out You don't let anyone see. Okay, so let's see. Taking it down. It's going up. Let's try that. Let's see if it'll go in. Success. Although, up in here, because I've got the side case cover off, all the oil decides to flow back to the back. And I don't want it to get on the exhaust, so I stuffed a paper towel up in there. So I'm going to get it back to level, and it should be fine. And doesn't that exhaust look better than it did? And there's the rear brake hub cover. So the exhaust and the brake hub, you know, really cleans up that back. CDI covers on. There's the side cover on. The peg mount. The rear brake. It's all mounted. The chain is adjusted and tightened. And let's go on over to the other side. And there's the chain guard. And let's put the little cover. And there it is on. There's a handful of bolts that I want to plate. And this is my plating setup here. So I'm going to zinc plate these. And then I'm going to put them in a special blue and then a yellow chromate to match the other bolts. And there is the plated bolts. And they closely match the age look of the rest of the bolts on the bike. And there are the bolts after being plated. So let's put one next to each other. Pretty similar, huh? Yeah, I've kind of figured that one out. That's exactly what I want. So let's put that pull starter on and the exhaust shields and baffles and all that stuff. This is what I believe to be the original air cleaner as far as opening of the air cleaner. This is the original foam Honda element. And I do not believe this has ever been taken out. So it's like Jimmy Hoffa's tomb right here. So let's see. See, look at that. See how that's over age? This has actually pulled away a little. Got a little bit of a foam deterioration there. And there it is. That's the inside of the box. I mean, this is typically full of garbage. So obviously I'm going to need a new air filter, but I wanted to document this because this is really interesting. And I just don't think I've ever seen a 30-year-old air cleaner that looks like this. All this is age. There is no hours on this bike. That's really cool. So let's button this up. You're probably going to see a lot of videos if you're looking at ATCs, the old Hondas. This will be the only one you're going to see that literally has a brand new airbox. And everything on the bike is like this, other than a little bit of rust checking and surface rust here and there. But I mean, look at that. That is very rare. So I got to order an air cleaner, and I wanted to show. Look at how this air. Just look at this. Watch this. Let me see if I can show you. It's like pound cake, only even less tacky. It doesn't even hold together as good as pound cake. So I'm going to mount this up and then replace the air cleaner when it comes in. And there it is, mounted. Still got to tighten that up. I wanted to show you after I detail the tire what it looks like compared to the old tires. And that's just cleaning with a brush, just super cleaning, and then go-go juice on there. So one ride in the dirt and it's gone. But for display purposes, it's going to look great when I put the tubes in it. So now is just really a good time to end this segment of the video. Got that plated nut there. Will you come into focus? No. It's just a great time to end this one. I'm still waiting for the CDI unit, and then I'm going to order a few other pieces. There's really not a whole heck of a lot more to do other than get it running. I'm going to polish up these front forks. They should look good. I've already detailed the grips, the switch. I've got a replacement on one out in the boneyard of both this cap and this, which will take all of the pitting out of that and really make it look 100% better on that top triple clamp. And so this one is still too small for 2-ton Ted out there in Shingletown. I just don't believe that this is a good unit for you out there, Joe. So don't get your eyes set on this one. This one really shouldn't go to Shingletown. Plus, I think that I might keep this for a while and then get rid of maybe the 185 that I've got. So we are on the downhill slope on this 83 ATC110. So until the next time, just keep the channel open, and I appreciate you watching. Oh, and one more thing. Matt and Judy, I hope you're watching. I hope you enjoy it. And thank you again for the opportunity to pick this up. And log into the next one, which should be up fairly soon. And because I'm still waiting for the stuff on this one, and I'll probably get right into this one as soon as those parts come in and finish this one up. So there might be a small delay for the ATC110, but the bigger parts are all done. The hardest part is all done. So we'll see you on the